Hey everyone, Brittany Harlow with VNN here. I am the lead journalist and director at Verified News Network. We're streaming here on VNN Live on YouTube. It's February 23rd. We're also on TikTok right now. Thanks everyone over there that's watching us. I'll try to check out the comments. Um, Tonight, we're going to go. Typically, when I do these, I will be talking about the stories that we have going on, what's been new. First, I got to ask you guys to please be a part of the conversation. We have a few different ways that you can do that. You can drop comments on YouTube, and I will see them and respond to them. And then, of course, you could send me an email if that makes you feel more comfortable. You can just send it to bharlow@verifiednews.network. As always, the best way for you to support us is just subscribing. We have free news updates that we send out. We have media literacy. You do all that at verifiednews.network and just hit subscribe, enter your email address. We won't bombard you with dumb emails all the time. Really just news, what our local journalists are working on. And then again, just weigh in on the comments and let us know what you are interested in and what you like and don't like. And shout out to all of our new subscribers and on YouTube that dropped in after we launched our first Metaverse Adventures. If you didn't see that, go check it out. It was something. I threw up the graphic there. That's what it looks like. That's me. That's my avatar on the screen. It was a trip. I've never done anything like that before, and I thought, why not broadcast the first time that I do this live? So we worked out a couple kinks. This is what it's going to look like when we do it next time. That's our cool screen that we have going on there. I don't want to talk too much about that, but we are going to be doing another live stream. Essentially, it's just a way for you to get included. We're all about inclusivity here at VNN into the Web3 space. If you've never gone into a virtual world or done any kind of virtual reality, neither have I really. And so we are entering the metaverses together, I guess, for the first time. It is so awkward. So I'm glad that you maybe can experience some of that awkwardness vicariously through me first. So before you jump in there for the first time by yourself. So we will take a minute just to check out our app.verifiednews.network. It's a social media network that we developed and designed exclusively for Verified News. We have our journalists and affiliates contributing to it. We had a lot of great stories this week so far, and the week's only half over, about Black History Month and how different cities are celebrating that. Our journalists have been writing about it. Down there was a story about the COVID ramifications stacking up against single parents. And I mean, I'm not a single parent, but I am a parent, and I can say that it has been crazy, even just between COVID and then the daycares were closed on Monday for the holiday. And here in Oklahoma, we're having a couple inches of snow and everything's been shut down today and tomorrow. So it's really hard as an entrepreneur, and I can't imagine doing this by myself. Thank you. I love the newsletters. Got a comment there. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. We're working hard to keep turning good quality content. And that's where I really want to redirect what this live stream is about. I don't want to take too much time talking about the overall stories that we're working on. I want to focus on one story that we've been working on here in Oklahoma. Sorry, that's really loud. I myself had COVID a few weeks ago, and so if you've dealt with that, which maybe most of the country has by now, my throat is still not recovered fully. But the story that I want to talk to you guys tonight about is the story of April Wilkens. And I can honestly say, right now, I am the only journalist in the state of Oklahoma that is doing coverage of this story. And that is terrible. I wish that more mainstream news uh, organizations would pick it up because it's just a heartbreaking real life story of a woman who's still struggling. This is a look at the story that we did on her a while back, earlier this year. Actually, no, because it's February. We did this story last year. Time is elusive to me, but it's 2 decades later. A woman sentenced to life for killing her abuser still fights for freedom. So I talked with April. I haven't, ever since I got sick with COVID a while ago, I haven't talked to her um, on the phone too much, and we talk on Messenger as well. But I started talking to her because a relative of hers reached out to mine, her niece, Amanda. I'm sure she's tuning in right now. I interviewed her for our next story about April last week, and she started this blog talking about her aunt and what had happened to her. And when I first got this, I get a lot of emails like this, like, please cover my um, family member or my friend or myself, like we've suffered an injustice. And I saw it, I did a little bit of research into it, and I was like, wow, her relative killed somebody. And so I was like, she didn't deny killing them. And I was like, that's pretty heavy. You've been in prison ever since. That is, it's a terrible, tragic story. And so, but I kind of just, I was like, when got caught up doing other stuff, and I kind of just, let it kind of fall aside. And then I kept up with her through this blog, Free April Wilkens, and I was like shocked every time that she would post something. It was like, um, you know, this evidence and this case and this thing, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, this surely can't be real. That this woman had, that this was her life, and so I did some digging, and I got the court records, and we did this huge, big story about it. That this woman got involved with a man, and she came from humble backgrounds. He was very wealthy, so I'm going to say that right off the bat, that he was the son of this big local millionaire in Tulsa. So he like bought her all this stuff and took her on vacations and stuff like that, and she explained to me just like that it was just like swept off of her feet, like she was like a princess, and she had never felt like that before. But then she says it went downhill, that they started to use drugs. They, the relationship turned abusive, and it all really went downhill from there. And so she had actually called the police multiple times, like after the abuse had started. She had multiple protective orders against him. And this has all been backed up by police reports and the court documents and we'll go more in depth with the story, as far as she was even put into a mental hospital, just because, through when you're with someone that is so abusive for so long, like it's so psychologically damaging. Like you literally go crazy. You're scared all the time. You feel like your life is in danger. And so this, it really started deteriorating, I guess, for the lack of a better word, and getting really bad when she broke it off and said, I don't want to do this anymore. This relationship is just hurting each other. Like, let's just not do this anymore. And so then there was a period of weeks where he would break into her house. He stole her gun, stole all of her weapons. He destroyed the locks. And I don't know if I'm going to get shut down on YouTube, or I'm going to get shut down on um, TikTok. I mean, if I do, I do. For going into, I'm not going to get into, crazy details, but this is her life and this is true and this is all backed up by documents, was that, he multiple times was found to have raped her and physically damaging. Sane nurses examined her, especially the last night that he was alive, and found out that she had been severely injured from that experience. I don't want to, keep saying the word rape, but that abuse and what he did to her was documented. It was all over her face and it was all over her body. That this woman had case after case of her being physically abused. And to like one of the most horrifying things that she's told me is that April Wilkens told me that um, the cops would laugh about it, that he had, this man had a police scanner in his car. And so he would hear, when the police were coming, and he would always leave before they got there. And so she, it was a joke about him always leaving before they got there, which to me is, I can't, this was 20 years ago, it's 20, almost 25 years ago that this happened. And so I can only imagine with how women are treated today and not taken care, serious as far as domestic violence, how bad it was back then for this woman. But yeah, she was hospitalized. She had multiple restraining orders. Um, this man was arrested outside of her house with a loaded gun and a taser because one time he didn't, escape quick enough from the police. And so he was actually arrested outside of her house. And, her house was completely destroyed on the inside from this man. And so, I hate to say long story short because it's a much longer story, and that wasn't exactly short, but it's, I guess, short compared to the everything that had happened to this woman. And so after being terrorized for weeks, April Wilkens goes to his house, and I will say his name. For anyone that is not from Oklahoma, that maybe you are not familiar with the chain of auto dealerships around here. There's a few big ones, and one of the biggest ones is Don Carlton, and so that is actually the father of the man who was April's abuser. Um, his name was Terry Carlton, was the son's name, and so that is the name of the man who April was in a relationship with. They were engaged. She broke it off. He terrorized her, beat her, raped her multiple times. Admitted this on tape, too. I'll go back to it. That's kind of why I keep skipping back to this story that we have done here. If you want to check it out, we did an illustrated news story. It's on our YouTube channel. Again, 2 decades later, a woman sentenced to life for killing her abuser still fights for freedom. If you're not watching this on YouTube, it's at Verified News Network is our handle on YouTube. And of course, if you are, make sure to hit subscribe and find it in our list of videos. But we have recordings that we got that we incorporated into this illustrated news story that are Terry Carlton himself admitting to this abuse, admitting to raping her, and none of it was used in court, by the way. This woman had a public defender a lot, and she paid money for, her family paid money for people to help her out. This man that was supposed to be a witness, but really made things worse. So she's never really had anyone going to bat for her in the legal system like she deserved. And that's what happens, obviously, when you have a poor woman who has admitted to using drugs, even if it was with her abuser, and then going against a millionaire. But anyway, So April Wilkens went to his house in a what she believed to be a period of calm. And this was again after she had been abused for weeks, terrorized, her house being broken into constantly. She tells me that it was like living in a nightmare because she honestly thought that she was going to die. She couldn't sleep, she couldn't eat, she was just scared all the time. The police weren't doing anything, nobody was doing anything to help this woman. And so she went to his house and to try to work it out and say, I want this to be over. Let's just go our separate ways and go on with our lives because obviously both of us are miserable. And she says it quickly went downhill when when he realized that she wasn't trying to get back together with him. He forced her to do drugs, which she didn't really. She just pretended. And the drugs, she had a drug test quickly soon after that proved that she had no drugs in his system. He, meanwhile, tested positive for heroin and meth, but the court, I guess, didn't care about that he was a drug abuser. They really just painted her as a drug addict as far as like the DA. But anyway, so he began to physically abuse her. He forced her to have sex with him that night. And then she was upstairs, kind of freaking out, defenseless. She found his gun, so she put it on her person because she was afraid, she tells me. And then she went back downstairs. And I am not going to say what happened next on this live stream. If you're watching on TikTok, again, or on YouTube, you can go to app.verifiednews.network, find the story, April Wilkens, or watch the story on YouTube. I'm not going to say what he threatened to do to her on this live stream because I feel like that's just a little too much for anyone who's just jumping into it. But it was bad. It was pretty much the worst thing that many women could imagine happening to them is what he was threatening her with and about to force on her. And so it was in that instance where he was dragging her to a couch that she pulled out the gun and she shot him and she killed him. And obviously, I don't really like to give opinions on news as a journalist, but a series of mistakes were made by a lot of people in this whole situation. But the majority of the mistakes do not lie with April Wilkens. It's evidenced in the court documents. It's all there in the police reports, the series of events that night after she killed him. They did a SANE exam on her that proved that he raped her that night and hurt her and abused her and beat her that night. And then she killed him, and she has been in prison ever since for that. Almost 25 years she has been in prison for killing the man that abused her and raped her and almost killed her, and honestly probably would have killed her. The experts that I've talked to a lot say the most dangerous time in a domestically violent relationship is when that victim leaves or when they try to leave. She would be dead, but now she's in prison. So this is why I'm doing a story about this, why I'm doing a series of stories about this. She tried to, and I mean, this story just gets shadier and shadier with, the DA at the time, Tim Harris, pretty corrupt. It's been reported. And, at the time, just painted her, said that she as like a drug addict and a woman who cried rape. And first of all, I don't understand how, as a public defender, you can say someone cried rape when there's physical evidence upon physical evidence that it was not crying rape. It literally was rape. She was tore up from that experience, medically proven. Um, but obviously, this man that she killed came from a very wealthy family, millionaire. After she was locked up for life, this millionaire then contributed to the reelection campaign of said DA. Um, there's a line of more corruption with this case, as far as, April Wilkens filed appeals to get released out of prison, and they were denied. But like, one of the judge denying the appeals actually married this millionaire to one of his subsequent wives. Like, this is crazy stuff. And I thought that I got into detail with this first video that I had done, but we're doing a series on it because April Wilkens deserves to be a name that you know. Even if you're not from Oklahoma, even if you're not, I mean, I guess ideally from the United States, but you should know about this woman that's been in prison for sentenced to life, been there for almost 25 years, been denied appeals, denied parole, model citizen in there, never gotten any type of problems. She's a mentor to other women. She's been in all of these different programs to help women. Every time I talk to her, she is just the most positive person, the most, faithful believer in there. It's like, I've cried a lot over her, and I feel like as a journalist, you'd think that I wouldn't be so emotional. But just the hope that she has, and the belief that she will one day be released out of prison. And it's up to the public. It's up to you watching this. Like, we have something that we can do, and that is writing to the Parole and Pardon Board, urging them to parole her finally. It's been almost 25 years. She would be out right now if she had taken a deal for 20 years. That even the millionaire, Don Carlton, agreed to 20 years. But she passed it up. She's like, I don't want that deal. I'm a woman that was beaten and terrorized and raped and abused, and I killed someone that was doing that to me because no one else would help me, and I was in fear for my life. Like, I'm not going to take a 20-year deal. I'm innocent of murder. She, fought for battered women syndrome as her defense, which is kind of an insanity plea, and she lost badly. She was mocked. The media, obviously, Don Carlton is one of the biggest advertisers of local media here in the Tulsa area. You think that they gave April Wilkens a fair story or even reported on her case at all? I don't know if that's going to change. Don Carlton actually just died like last month. So I don't know if that's going to change. Maybe now that, I don't know. I feel like that his advertising dollars are so entrenched into the local media that even if that he did pass away, that it wouldn't make a difference. They're still not going to tell this story. There's no other local journalists that are really caring about this story and about the injustice that this woman has suffered for almost a quarter of a century. So, it's just a really upsetting story if you care at all about women who have been beaten and raped and abused, and they just have nothing. They have nothing. And no one helping them. And that is the case, nearly 25 years ago when this had happened. But things have gotten a little better. Obviously not for April Wilkens because she's still in prison, forgotten about pretty much, unless people talk about her and share her story. Again, if you're interested, just tuning in, April Wilkens, Oklahoma, look up the story. You'll only find it on Verified News Network, I'm pretty sure, for the last 10, 20 years. We're the only one talking about it. And we're not going to stop talking about it. We're actually doing another full series coming out. I have some a really great update as far as this year being her year, which I'm definitely advocating for. And that is that she is up for parole again this year. Her you want to write a letter, you have 5 days to write a letter to the Pardon and Parole Board about April Wilkens if you think that she should be paroled. Her lawyer is accepting that until February 28th. His name is Glenn Blake. I put the information for that in the last story that we had done about her. And but if you're like, oh, 5 days is too short, or maybe you're not seeing this until after the 28th, the way that it works is that they have to turn in all of her stuff to just apply for parole hearing. And then a week after that deadline for those files and whatever, I believe it's about March 7th or March 8th, they will make a determination as to whether or not she will get a parole hearing. And then if she gets a parole hearing, then that will probably be in May. And then that is actually what's going to decide if the board recommends her for parole. And so there's going to be a period between March 7th, if she gets that hearing, and sometime in May that you can submit a letter advocating for her if you believe that she should be released from prison for killing her abuser almost 25 years ago. And I'll have more information about that too, because we're going to be doing a series of stories. And so I mentioned Amanda, her niece, the whole reason why VNN is even on the story anymore. So shout out to Amanda for being one of the only advocates for this woman that's been incarcerated for so long. We did an interview with her, so you'll get to meet her. We did an interview with a local expert about the legal system in Oklahoma and how harshly punitive and punishing it is towards women like April. Basically, the state sending out messages that women are just supposed to deal with the abuse and they're not supposed to fight back. And something she had told me that I'll be including too is that you just have to be a model victim. You have to be wealthy. You have to be having no history of any kind of negativity in your background, no drug use, no anything. And then the man, of course, that you accuse can also not be wealthy or powerful. So it's pretty narrow path of justice for abused women here in Oklahoma. But I also am speaking with a lawmaker who is going to be working to change that. And that's another thing that could benefit April in the future, but also benefit a lot of women here in Oklahoma, because unfortunately, one of the experts I spoke with said, even though this was 25 years ago, this is life still for abused women. People don't understand what it's like to be in an abusive relationship and why people don't just leave. Why people just don't, oh, why don't you just walk away? Why don't you just get your own place? A lot of these women have nothing. They have their dignity taken away from them. They have their money taken away from them. They have their job, their friends. That's what abusers do. They systematically remove everything out of your life so that you have nothing and no one to depend on except for them. Not to mention people like April who have gone to the police, who her abuser had friends on the police department, who protective orders are not being enforced. Like, you literally have no one. Especially if who you're going after is more powerful than you, or who you're trying to get away from even. So we're just trying to bring some attention to this case of April Wilkens. I hope that more media picks it up, because this story is outrageous, and it sucks being the only journalist in the state covering the April Wilkens case. But I mean, just your viewership and you following along with what we're doing is huge. So thank you so much for watching. I'm going to be pretty much about the same time that we know whether April is going to get that parole hearing or not is when I'm going to release this series of stories. So keep an eye out for that update. And of course, Oklahoma, another issue. Even if April Wilkens does get recommended for parole, it will go to Governor Kevin Stitt's desk, and he will have to sign that for her to get out of prison. So I believe that Oklahoma is one of 2 states that after the parole and pardon board signs off and agrees and recommends someone for parole. Like, it doesn't just happen. The governor could say, no, I don't want that to happen. And then and I want to say that he has done that in the past, but don't quote me on that, because I feel like he also has gone with the recommendations of that parole and pardon board. So I'm hoping. Yes, of course, I got a message here on TikTok. Thank you for caring about incarcerated women in Oklahoma. You're very welcome. I feel like it's our job to help not just affluent, successful, I guess you could say, members of society. Like, as news people, we are here to serve everybody, especially the people who don't have a voice. And so that's why we exist. We're definitely going to be covering this a lot more. Cautiously optimistic that our news, your viewership, is going to pay off big with April Wilkens finally getting free. So I hope that you guys will get more up to date with the April Wilkens story. If you haven't already, any questions, please feel free to send me a message, send me a comment. I'll get these comments, messages even after we're not streaming anymore. Be a part of the conversation. Afterwards, you can send me an email, bharlow@verifiednews.network. And of course, subscribe for updates, and you can do that at verifiednews.network. Get at me if you like what you see, if you want to support us in any way. Again, just following what we're doing and reading and sharing our stories is huge. It's more than we could ask for. This is going to be it for me. Stay tuned soon for more metaverse adventures. Those are going to be coming at you. Going to have at least one at the end of the week. But until next time, Verified News community, I'm Brittany Harlow. I appreciate all of the time that you've spent with us tonight. And again, keep an eye out for more April Wilkens coverage in the future. Have a good night.